Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're giving a webinar today. The topic is migrating your on-premise JD Edwards environment to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. And I'm Tom Atwood. I'm Director of Applications at ONV. I've been involved in the Oracle ecosystem, primarily JD Edwards, for over 25 years. I started my career as a JD Edwards CNC consultant. So have been on the ground implementing the software, doing installations, upgrades, migrations, as well as project management. We also have John O'Connell from ONV on the line as well. He's Director of Sales, has been selling Oracle solutions for over a decade, and it resides in Chicago as well as Florida. I'm actually up in Steamboat right now, where it's sunny for once. We've had a lot of snow this year, but today is actually a sunny day, so I will take that. So our agenda today is, why choose cloud if you're an on-premise customer? And then, as far as the cloud options, why would you choose Oracle Cloud Infrastructure over some of the other options out there, the competition? And then wanted to go through the options when you're considering moving to the cloud, because there are a variety of options. You can, do something minimal, or you can do something transformative. So we're gonna cover a little bit of that. We're going to cover lift and shift, because that is some nomenclature that's used often, and you hear it around, and just wanted to define that and talk a little bit about that. And then wanted to talk about, if you decide to upgrade your JD Edwards environment, if you're at a lower level release as part of your migration to the cloud. And then if you do that, we're going to cover, what the three types of upgrade options are if you're going to upgrade your JD Edwards environment. We're going to cover a case study real quick, and then I'm going to leave you with some resources that you can refer to after the presentation. I believe we will make this webinar available after today as well.
Yeah.
So a little bit about our company. Like Oracle, we're a global company. We've been around for 22 years. We're an Oracle partner headquartered in Illinois, but we have offices not only in the US, but also in India, as well as the UK and Dubai. We started primarily as an ERP specialist company, but now we provide all enterprise solutions. We're an Oracle partner, so therefore we have a focus on JD Edwards, EBS, but database, as well as cloud solutions. Our offices in India are in Bengaluru and Chennai. And we have 450 consultants all across the globe, both onshore and offshore. As far as our service offerings, I mentioned that we specialize in ERP implementations. We acquired a company called White Light last year, and they were a JD Edwards focused solutions provider for over 25 years. I'm actually on the JDE side of the house, but that was their focus. Prior to that, NV was primarily focused on other Oracle EBS and other solutions, but now we have the full suite of Oracle products. We focus primarily, just like JD Edwards, there's been a focus on manufacturing, but, obviously serve all industries. So service offerings, we offer managed services, and that includes applications management like JD Edwards and others, as well as database management, infrastructure management, testing and QA, staff augmentation, projects. From a JD Edwards standpoint, we can provide CNC, DBAs, functional expertise, as well as support third-party products that are common in the JDE infrastructure ecosystem. We provide testing as a service. We can also assist with strategy. So for example, if you're considering moving to the cloud, we can do a technology assessment and help you with, the planning as far as navigating all the various options, including licensing options. We can resell Oracle products as well. We can do audits. So anyways, we do cloud migration. It's kind of the topic for today. So we're going to cover that. Basically, if you're going to implement in the cloud, we have had some greenfield implementations directly in the cloud. We've done integrations to other cloud solutions, migrations, as well as provide managed applications, managed services in the cloud. We also do some automation support. From a JDE Edwards standpoint, we can leverage Orchestrator, but we can use a variety of products as well. So this webinar kind of spun out of a webinar we gave in December of last year, where we were covering the top 5 tech trends that we were seeing for JDE Edwards customers and what they were, what we were expecting to see in 2023. And this is really an expansion on trend 5, or cloud infrastructure. And what we saw is, the common on-premise challenges are, there's a large capital expense with maintaining a data center. The IT staff is often overwhelmed. Often when there's an on-prem solution, disaster recovery, high availability isn't really the focus. Often that's an afterthought, where with customers maybe testing things, maybe once a year, restoring things from tape to, a site. It may not be completely baked into the client's footprint. So what we were hearing from our customers is they wanted to do cloud-first strategies. They wanted to incorporate a cloud migration as part of a hardware refresh cycle. So if, a system is coming off of maintenance or they need to upgrade it, that's actually a good time to think about moving to the cloud. Also, timing your applications upgrade with a migration is often a good thing too. And then also leveraging managed services. I mean, if you can move to the cloud and offload some common day-to-day tasks to a partner, your IT staff is freed up to do other things that are more strategic to your business. So why cloud? Yeah, I'm sure you've probably heard all the reasons why. One reason is you can reduce costs. You've heard that a lot. You can convert your costs from a capital expense into an operating expense, and there are quite a bit of savings. There have been studies where, like, the Dow Jones lowered their expenses by 25%, GE Oil and Gas by 52%. So the numbers are kind of all over the place. But the main reason that we've seen as people moving to the cloud isn't necessarily cost-driven, it's business-driven. And some of the reasons I mentioned before, as part of an upgrade, as part of freeing your staff to do other things. You want to preserve all your historical investment in your business processes, logic, and your data on premise, but you want to move it to the cloud. And like I said, it's not necessarily your core business focus to be in the IT data center business. You may be a manufacturing company, and you may want to focus on that and making your processes for manufacturing better versus running a data center. The cloud offers a lot of advantages from a flexibility standpoint, and that consists of speed, agility, elasticity, and scalability. You can scale things up or down depending on if you have a project or if you're anticipating peak times like a month-end close. And you can also use it for doing proof of concepts, or you can have a QA environment in the cloud, or offload testing, or you could stand up a cloud environment that's just focused on disaster recovery. So there's a number of scenarios, and you don't have to go all in on all of it at once. You could stand up a DR environment in the cloud as your first, foray into the cloud, or, a QA or a POC in the cloud, and then, move everything over after you feel more comfortable with that. There's also greater, size and diversity of services when you're talking the cloud versus on-premise, because you don't have to do it all yourself. And then, like I mentioned before, just modernization is part of a hardware refresh. That's often a good time to move to the cloud. So why Oracle Cloud Infrastructure? Oracle knows Oracle products best. So they're doing constant innovation on their platforms and products. JD Edwards is an Oracle product. So it makes sense to choose Oracle for your provider. They offer a number of unique service offerings, a lot of unique SLAs that are offered by other competitors. They're the only cloud network, performance SLA, the only block storage SLA. So those are unique when you're thinking about moving to OCI. When you're moving to OCI, you can take advantage of their infrastructure as a service, their platform as a service, or their software as a service. The easiest, and the most straightforward use case is IaaS. And with that solution, you can quickly and easily provision new instances of JD Edwards. There's lots of utilities to manage customizations. There's simplification from an upgrade standpoint, depending on what release you're at. And then you can have elasticity where you can expand and contract based on your workload. But you can also do platform as a service where you may want to take advantage of the database cloud service. There's autonomous databases that reduce the need for on-site or managed service DBAs because the database itself is doing some of those tasks. You can use Java Cloud Service, Mobile Cloud Service, Integration Cloud Service. So there's a number of options there. You can also integrate JD Edwards with other software as a service prepackaged applications. And so those include, HCM, CRM, EPM. Those would be options where you could, leverage that from a SaaS standpoint, but then still have all your JD Edwards, core functionality in the cloud as well. One thing to note is, JD Edwards is not a SaaS, and that's one thing that is often confused by clients. And JD Edwards still has a perpetual license. So your licensing does not change when you move it to the cloud. You still have the same licensing model as you always had, provided you're just talking about JD Edwards. Obviously, there's differences if you decide to move to platform as a service or software as a service. Those would be additional. Oracle's got a gigantic footprint as well. They put a lot of money into R&D. From an OCI standpoint, they have data centers in 22 countries, and they're still growing. Cloud at customer in 60 plus countries. They have interconnects with Azure. So if you're a mixed platform environment, that may be an advantage of note. I think there's like 14 worldwide regions with 13 coming soon. It's a lot easier to design HA and DR systems in the cloud because they have a lot of availability domains. So they have 1 to 3 availability domains in each one of their infrastructure regions. And so you can think of an AD as like a data center. And so you can have multiple data centers in a region, and you can combine that with other regions as well. So it can become very fault tolerant, very high availability. And also from a data disaster recovery standpoint, it can be really advantageous because you can cover great geographic distances, which is advantageous if there's an earthquake or other localized disaster event. So your options from JD Edwards standpoint is you can lift and shift. So that's where you take your JD Edwards environment and you go like for like to the cloud. So you would get IaaS, bare metal, which is where you can take advantage of, scaling of up to 160 cores, 2 terabytes of RAM, up to 1 petabyte of block storage. And you can build your environments, and then you just move exactly what you have on site into the cloud. That's like for like. There are some limitations on processors and operating systems and database. Probably one of the bigger ones is if you're on an iSeries or an AS400, that's going to take a little bit of work to get that to the cloud. Can't be hosted like for like in that scenario. But if you're on any of the other platforms, there's options to get you to the cloud. You can also migrate to the cloud as part of an upgrade. So if you do that, you can take advantage of new features and functionality that are, in the later releases of JD Edwards. If you're off support, this can be an opportunity to put you back on support. So you can go back onto Oracle Premier support. Oracle, the current JD Edwards, if you're on the latest, 9.2, that's going to be supported until 2033. So there's quite a long horizon for the JD Edwards product. So it may be advantageous if you've been off support to go back on. And then in the cloud, it's relatively easy to stand up new hardware, software procurement and provisioning, in testing as well. There's a lot of advantages. It's a lot easier to do that in the cloud. And then, as I mentioned before, if you wanted to incorporate, with some of the SaaS products, you can do that. So you could add additional functionality if you wanted. And then you can also go just for things that are, cloud optimized, and that would be like those SaaS products. You could also do a completely transformative or, transformational upgrade or platform migration. So if you're on iSeries, you may need to go to Linux, Oracle, or other platforms. And that's a bigger effort to do that, but that's an option. And then, as I said before, it's can be advantageous to have a third party just do an assessment with you, to work with your team to kind of overview what your options are as you move to the cloud. So lift and shift, we hear that all the time. Sometimes it's called move and improve or rehosting. So this is where you would basically take your environment as is on site and put it in the cloud. It's take it offline, in your data center and spin it up in the cloud. It's not quite as simple as that, but basically that's the idea. You may retain all your customizations, your data and configurations are retained as is. There are some options to improve security, some data management and reporting, just because of the advantages that are in the cloud that have some native, reporting and management utilities. So there are some advantages for that, but otherwise you're only going after low-hanging fruit. You're not trying to do anything major. The timeline's typically 3 months, around that time period. You have, have to supply the software licenses, Oracle supplies the CPU, memory, antivirus, backup, and DR. You're paying a subscription fee for those things. Then you copy and transform the data. You do some type of UAT with your business analysts and sign off on it, and then you go live. You could have the opportunity, if you wanted to offload some things to a managed service provider so that they handle like the builds, deploys, tools, releases, and upgrades, or you can do that yourself. You can manage that. There probably is still some training involved when you're doing a migration, but it's minimal. So the upgrade options, if you're going to consider an upgrade as part of a migration to the cloud, you have to consider your hardware. So, the goal is to do minimal procurement if you're going to do this on premise. So you can, the three options are basically you could upgrade on premise and you migrate it to the cloud, or you migrate to the cloud and then upgrade in the cloud, or you can upgrade as part of the migration. I recommend the latter. It's not always an option, but that's probably the preferred course of action. If you're doing it on site, you're going to have to, consider if you have enough, space, additional equipment, whether that be like additional VMs or additional CPU or disk or RAM. You have to decide if you need separate servers or if you can do them, in different environments on the same servers. The disadvantage of doing it, on site and then moving it to the cloud is you're going to have to do this, twice, because you're going to have duplicate testing and go lives, whether that be, when you do your upgrade on site and then later when you do it in the cloud. And that's similar to migrating to the cloud and then upgrading in the cloud. You have basically standing up a throwaway environment in the cloud, although the costs are probably going to be less than doing that on site. And then you do duplicate testing in the go live cycles, same thing as it would be with the previous option. So the timelines are longer. If you upgrade as part of your, your migration to the cloud, there's only one cycle of user acceptance and testing. There's only one go live. You can still use your on-premise environment just as it is until go live. And if you have issues with, UAT or other things, you can set new go live dates and you still have your current environment, so that the failback is really easy. So those are kind of your three options. So again, 3 types of upgrades. So if you do decide to upgrade, whether that be on-site or in the cloud or as part of your move, you have 3 choices. If you just do a technical upgrade, that's similar to lift and shift. It's basically like for like. The only change is you're going from an older release like a 9.0 or 9.1 to a 9.2, or maybe moving to 64-bit, but you're trying to make the changes technical. You're not trying to add new functionality, take on a new module, any of those things. You may eliminate a couple, customizations or third-party programs, but it's going to be anything that's just easy to identify. You want to keep it, the same. And so that's your, fastest and least costly option. If you do a functional upgrade, that's where you do the technical upgrade, but you're also adding new business processes and functionality. So, maybe you want to add, HR as part of your move to the cloud, or payroll. I don't know what it would be, but like you could do that as part of your upgrade. Of course, if you do that, you're adding complexity. There's new configurations and design required. So you're going to have to do some level of change management. And as we go down from top to bottom in this list, you're going to have to do more training. You always have to do training, but the more change you introduce into your organization, the more training you need to do. So, later releases of JDE 9.2 has a lot more functionality than, 9.0 or even before that. So you may not need customizations that you previously had in place. You might be able to get rid of those just with vanilla, 9.2 functionality. If you do a functional upgrade, you can also maybe eliminate some manual processes, customizations, third-party products. There's also a transformational or often or sometimes referred to as refactoring or containerization or rebuild, depending on kind of which flavor you're doing. But transformational is doing the technical, the functional, and then additional. And the additional can be anything. So you can completely change your business processes, implement new modules. You might have to do a replatform. So this might be going from World to E1, or going from AS400 to a different platform. You might have to do a complete redesign. So you may want to just completely take advantage of cloud native features. You can, from a development standpoint, design things in the cloud that are quite different than how you would design things for on-premise. So that's transformational. If you do that, of course, that's going to take more training, more effort. It's probably a lot longer timeline from a project standpoint. So,
hey Tom, I just wanted to mention, anybody has questions, throw those into the chat so that we make sure we get to them before the end of the meeting.
Yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, as far as an upgrade to the cloud, during your migration, JD Edwards support is for 9.2 is until 2033. If you're on World 8.9.4, Premier's already ended. Extended ends April of 2024. So those are some considerations. Also, as I mentioned before, your I-Series, AS400, DB2 they can't be hosted as is in OCI. They have to be replatformed. That is one limitation. When you're considering migrating, you're going to want to consider what release you're coming from and what release you're going to. If you're going to the latest, which is 9.2 with a 64-bit latest tools release, that's probably your goal as part of an upgrade. And when you're considering that, you're going to want to look at all the minimum tech requirements, because there's a lot of different options based on where you're coming from and where you're going to. The later releases, like if you're coming from like 9.1 or 9.02, 9.0 update 2, you can do simplified upgrades, which is quicker and easier. If you're coming for some of the older releases, you may have to do an intermediate step to get to 9.2. So you just kind of have to pay attention to what release you're coming from and where you're going to. The later releases have advantages. So if you're at 9.1 or 9.2 with a 9.2 tool set, you can do the Oracle Cloud Migration utility. And that's really handy. You can do one path code at a time, and you don't have to go from, you can go from PD to dev in the cloud. There's a lot of options you can configure. And once you kind of have it configured, you can run it over and over again. So it's really makes the migration easier, quicker, and you can, kind of script it out. As I mentioned before, you do have to consider if you're doing a platform or a database change, because that does complicate things. And then, 902 and 9.1 GA simplified upgrade, definitely take advantage of that if you can. Your goal always is to, take advantage of the new developments in 9.2. So you have to have your BAs evaluate what's available in the latest release and see if there's anything that can be done better or eliminated as part of your business processes. And then you always want to, one goal is always to standardize your environment. I mean, it makes support a lot easier if you have a more vanilla or less complicated environment. So that's definitely a goal, is eliminate any unnecessary customizations and third-party applications. One other thing to consider that actually is a pretty big thing is take a look at how much data you have and what you actually need for your environment. I know that, there are legal and regulatory requirements for maintaining data, but if you're not in a, if you haven't ever, purged your environment or archived your data, moving to the cloud is definitely the time to think about that. If you can do that prior to migrating, it reduces the amount of data that you have to either push over a public internet or a private dedicated network, or even if you're shipping, like a network device with all your data as part of this process, the less data that you have, the quicker this whole process is going to be. So it's a really good time to think about archiving and purging prior to an upgrade. I'm just going to go through a case study that we did. So this is a major gardening products company, and they operate gardening activities. They have multiple brands. They've been around for 50 years. They had a green screen system, and then they also acquired a company that had JD Edwards. And their legacy green screen was on premise, as was the acquired company. And they decided, as part of their business strategy, their go-forward strategy, they were going to combine both of those ERP systems into Oracle Cloud. And they chose JD Edwards as the solution. So they brought both of those environments into JD Edwards into the cloud. As part of that process, they were able to decrease the time for server procurement, delivery, and installations. They obviously took advantage of the scalability. They were able to add resources using one-click provisioning because they went to the latest release. They built in, as part of their solution, a high availability and disaster recovery. So in this case, they actually had data centers in North America for the E1 instances and their DR site. They took advantage of regional data centers with single availability domains, and they have a primary site and a disaster recovery site. So they have some flexibility there as far as failovers and redundancy. So it was really successful to take something that was very legacy and also disparate and make it all the same environment in the cloud. So it was a successful project from that standpoint. The project approach was, they wanted to leverage the best practices in designing and operating a cloud. They wanted to extend their business value for their customer. They leveraged Oracle BI Publisher, which I mentioned before, that helps with eliminating some third-party products. They also, as part of this, took advantage of all-out security. So they use that to redo their security. That's an add-on to JD Edwards security. It offers a variety of reports. It helps with segregation of duties. It's a pretty powerful product from that standpoint. They did still have some other third-party products. So they used RFGen, and they use Loftware for label management. Mentioned BI Publisher, but they did this installation configuration into E1 in OCI, did the standard environments, so just development, prototype, and production. They didn't have any other environments other than that. And they were also using RevSoft for job scheduling. So, this was successful. They had a lower cost of operations, a better experience for their users. And they got to take advantage of the full breadth of Oracle's offering from a high performance computing, storage, and networking standpoint, as well as managed databases. That was another advantage of their solution. So from a resource standpoint, Oracle does have quite a bit of stuff out there. You just kind of have to know where to look for it. There is if you just search JD Edwards and Oracle Cloud, it'll probably via Google, it'll probably pull up a bunch of stuff. But there's a Learn JD Edwards, and I put the link here. I'm sure you'll get this presentation after we conclude. But that's a big resource for kind of navigating this. What your options are. There's also in the knowledge base in My Oracle Support. There's a doc that has links to a variety of other docs. It's getting started with JD Edwards Enterprise One. The doc IDs there. That's a really good place to start. There's also a value proposition, customer success stories, and benefits site where you can, they can walk you through a number of things. I put a link in here to Terraform, because if you're on a Linux platform, this is a really good product for scripting out migrations to the cloud. So that's something that can be leveraged. There are, you're gonna have to dig into exactly what release and what software you have to be at to take advantage of that. But it is a pretty cool tool. And then Oracle also has a bare metal cost estimator. So you just plug in the parameters of, what your processor is, if you want Ampere or Intel or other, what the servers are as far as, usage and what you want for an OS. And then it'll tell you your cost. So it'll tell you your utilization. The example in this little screenshot is one instance, 744 hours a month. And it'll tell you your monthly cost. So you can play around with that. It's actually pretty